Today joined by Assemblyman Scott Gray. Scott, thanks for coming in today.
Pleasure to be here, John. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, our major topics are going to be what happened at a chicken hatchery just outside of Watertown on Wednesday, apparently?
Apparently, yes.
Yep.
I was just made aware of it yesterday. So.
Yep. To your best of your knowledge, what exactly did happen?
So they went in, they picked up, to my knowledge, I think it was around, 12 or 15 workers there, migrant workers, and I think there was a certain portion of the workforce that just was migrant workforce that did not show up. So they're in some complications right now to try to keep the plant running, from my understanding.
Mm-hmm. Now you say they, is it fuzzy at this point exactly
they
who they
fuzzy.
was that went there and detained these people?
Yeah, we don't know who they is right now. We don't know if it was ICE or we don't know if it was the Customs and Border Patrol.
Mm-hmm. And you're trying to find that out?
Well, it would help in order to figure out exactly what happened and what caused, what perpetrated the arrival of these individuals there. So, we need details. We need to understand what the circumstances are in order to drill down into issues like this. When we get issues here, like these circumstances, we need to understand everything about them in order to look at why they happened and if there's any sort of fix to the problem. So as we know, this company is dependent upon these workers, and they have a lot of chicks out there that are, trying to keep them alive, my understanding.
Yeah. Well, what do you know about the business? This is fairly new, isn't it? And
yeah, we have a couple of different hatcheries.
It's had some county help to launch and was hailed as, a pretty major advance for industry in the area.
Yeah, and so we have two different hatcheries in Watertown, and this is one that they send for broilers, chickens, to round to Canadian market and different markets. So I think our close proximity to the Canadian border makes us appealing for these types of operations. We have two. It would be nice if we could get more in here. Although these circumstances, if they require this type of workforce, the migrant workforce, are going to make it difficult for us to attract, right? Economic development at some point is going to be affected by this whole, these, I guess, raids, you will say, or workforce, work site, type of operations.
Yeah, so one wonders if it has a chilling effect on the workforce either fleeing or not showing up at a whole bunch of probably farms around the area. Correct?
Yeah, I think that ship has sailed, if you will. I think it has already chilled the workforce, right? And I think it is already, I think they're very cognizant. The migrant workforce is very cognizant of what the possibilities are out there. And so I think they're, just perhaps locked down at this point and limiting their movement, which means that it's going to affect employment in the area. So either we need to find other people to do these jobs, or we need to find a path forward for the migrant workforce to stay here and to keep performing these jobs.
And probably sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. Can't happen, from my standpoint, can't happen fast enough. That's for sure. Cannot happen fast enough. So, I know the president has, mentioned it last week or so about the possibility of the migrant workforce staying in place if they're gainfully employed and can be vouched for by the employer, and there's no potential criminal background or history with them. So certainly, and I think the Board of Czar, Tom Holman, has affirmed his support for a measure like that. So, and to my point is, the faster we can move that initiative along and get it going, the better off we'd all be right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're friends with Mr. Holman. You grew up with him in Carthage, correct?
I did.
Did you play baseball on the corner lot together?
We did. So we went to the boys' club back then. It was the boys' club, and then we would play at the Ball Diamond over at West Carthage. So we grew up together, and
Yeah, so you do literally have a direct line to him, but is there a misperception that he knows everything about what's going on when it comes to immigration enforcement?
Yeah, so there's two things with that. One, I have obviously a personal relationship with Tom, and increasingly, I have a professional relationship with Tom, right? Because of what he's doing in the federal government and what's happening in the district that I represent, right? So not necessarily my lane, if you will, but it's happening in the district that I represent. So I'm vested in whatever is happening here, right? And I represent those issues to him on a professional level. So it's, I'm careful not to overextend our personal relationship, but we need to find some resolutions to this. And so I have a direct line to him, and it comes in handy, but it's also there's a certain level of expectation with that, right, from the public.
Yeah. So was he aware, from what you've learned, was he aware of the CWT thing?
He was not. So I informed him yesterday of it, and again, he asked what agency. So Tom, I guess going back to your previous question, Tom operates really at the national security level, right? And this is what I've tried to tell people over the last few weeks here with everything that's going on, is that this is really a national security concern, right? And a lot of this activity, if you will, involves drug cartels, number one, which is very dangerous for Tom personally, but it's drug trafficking, it's human trafficking, it's sex trafficking. So all of those components, right, raise a level of concern. We know human trafficking is an issue, right? Wilson Hill and Messina, right? We see that, right? All the trafficking across the waterway and then being picked up in northern New York. So
Tom was not aware of the CWT.
Correct.
You told him, and then
Yes.
Did he ask you to do some legwork for him?
Well, so obviously when I reach out to him and initially make him aware of what's going on, he, the first reaction we all have, he has it and I have it, is understanding the circumstances, right? We know one of the previous incidences involved a criminal activity, a very serious criminal activity, coupled the fact that there were kids close by, and that is a real concern, right? As we have mentioned, sex trafficking, human trafficking. So the first thing we try to do is understand all the circumstances surrounding an event like this, and so we can get a better understanding of it, and then figure out if there's a solution or how we can resolve the issue.
So in this case, we do not know if there was something larger that sparked this visit.
We do not know that, and the company at this point is really kind of keeping it close to the vest, keeping it to themselves. So I did reach out and asked for a visit today. They politely declined.
Okay, interesting. Back to what we were discussing before, are you hearing directly of the chilling effect? Are you hearing directly that what is happening on other farms or any other places?
Yes, we're hearing that directly. I mean, I have talked to the Ag Commissioner, Commissioner Ball from New York, New York State Ag Commissioner. I've talked to Farm Bureau President Dave Fisher. I've talked to several in the agricultural industry, and we know that this is having an effect. Their workers may not want to show up. They're just limiting their movement, right, for fear that there's going to be retribution for them moving around. So people aren't showing up. People are dispersing, and it is having a chilling effect. There's no question over it, and there's anxiety out there. And Northeast dairy producers, that's another one that we've heard from. One of my colleagues in the legislature out in Western New York represents Northeast dairy producers. I mean, we have regular conversations. We're trying to lower the temperature, if you will, and the anxiety within the agricultural community specifically. But it's not limited to agriculture. It's, we had a local lumber yard that was involved in this situation, and that was the incident in West Carthage that was highlighted in a recent article. Mm-hmm. Yep. So.
Yeah. So, going into the new administration and the advent of the new enforcement, we were kind of assured by Mr. Holman himself that no farms, for example, were not going to be direct targets.
Yes.
So if there's a feeling, whether it's accurate or not, that that's no longer the case, that leads to the angst that you're describing.
That's right. There's a lot of angst going on. So we've been assured by Tom that, that they're more concerned about vulnerable assets, if you will, versus agricultural work sites and things along that line. So, but there's something that is perpetrating, the action or the impetus for the action. And so that's a little bit of our responsibility in the state level is to make sure that, we do some sort of quality of assurance on these work sites to make sure that there is kind of, integrity of the work site, if you will, that people aren't, don't have criminal backgrounds. Previously deported people are, a target, right? Mm-hmm. So, and when you have previously deported people, that's a felony, right? And one of these individuals in the Sackets Harbor, again, was previously deported. He remains in Oneida County jail. Mm-hmm. So those all create the larger operation that you see, and that's when other people get swept up in these situations.
Yeah. Well, do you think, like a farm owner, for example, is there a way they can ride a little bit closer herd on the people that they have there?
We're going to have to figure out, that's the solution we're going to be, that we're in search of, but yes, that is part of it, is to make sure that the integrity of the whole operation is as clean as possible, right?
Yeah. So. Stepping backward in time just a little bit, the Sackets Harbor situation, does the public now have an accurate perception of what happened there, or are there any misperceptions that are lingering?
Well, I hope they do. And the child safety was the number one concern, right? So the type of crime that was taking place allegedly on the premises was the major concern. The type of crime, is what led to the concern with the children nearby. The facilities, I was telling everybody, and I think incorrectly, I was actually saying there was 3 family facilities within ICE, but I was since corrected by Tom that Pennsylvania has been closed, so the only 2 facilities are within Texas. Mm-hmm. So that's probably why the family was sent there. So, but hopefully that's biased. Hopefully people understand that, law enforcement has a job to do. And when it's a crime of this nature, we have to take all measures. Law enforcement has to take all measures to make sure that the children were not victims, were not subjects, or material witnesses.
Do you know if they are back?
I believe they are. I don't know that for fact, yes.
Okay.
So.
All right, before we shift to one other topic, is there anything else on this general topic you want to add?
Yeah, so, we'll talk about a little bit about and again, this is not my lane, if you will, but, what the president has spoke about, which is really, finding a way to keep this migrant workforce working, right? And I know the president, and I think I've talked to Tom about it, desire was to send them back and have them come back in the right way. My message to them is they're here, right? And let's establish some mobile, instead of going into these operations and disrupting them like we are, let's go in and maybe do some accountability of all the individuals that are here and say, okay, as long as you're gainfully employed, let's keep them working. Right, as long as the employers vouch for them that they're working and they're participating, and screen them, right? That if they don't have any criminal backgrounds, that you can stay and you can work and lower the anxiety of all these individuals as well as the workplaces. So I think we have the capabilities. I think the federal government has the capabilities of doing that within the borders of the United States, and we have resources, we have human resources, we see them on the ground doing these types of operations. We also know that we have facilities up in, Alex Bay and that area. So we have the capability, I think, of doing some triaging, if you will, to these workplaces to make sure that we have some accountability of all these folks. And then we can put them through a process to stay here on a more permanent basis. But it's a lot easier than trying to send them all back and have them come back in the right way.
So maybe there could be like a team or people that go visit every place, do a screening without.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. So I leave that up to the federal government, but I would encourage that type of operation versus sending these people back, to wherever they came from, if they are contributing to the workforce. If they're contributing to the economy, then let's find a path for them to stay here and participate in the workforce, right? And let's do that without a lot of disruption. Let's do it the best we can right here with the resources that we have. Instead of rating these operations, let's go through and kind of assess them all, if you will.
On a lower temperature basis.
Exactly. Well, just a calmer nature, right? Yeah. To say, we're not here in an adverse situation. We're here in more of a cooperative situation, right?
We're from the government and we're here to help.
That's a great line. I never thought of that. It never crossed my mind. So, but
all right.
Yes, essentially.
Yep. One other topic. What do you think of the prospects of Governor Elise Stefanik?
I mean, listen, it's a wide open field, obviously on the GOP side. So she certainly has the capabilities of doing that. There's no question about that. Mike Lawler has the capabilities. There's a number of, we have a good bench, if you will, with the opportunity, and certainly Elise is one of them, right? We've seen her leadership on the federal level, and, if she chooses to run in the state level, we would appreciate leadership here too, as well.
Lee Zeldin came 6 points, but that was in a year when there were a lot of factors working against the governor. I mean, it's very difficult.
It's an uphill. There's no question. It's a very uphill climb, if you will, task. You have to have some crossover appeal, right? And so I think any candidate that wants to run for governor, including Elise, has to evaluate whether you have the right amount of crossover appeal, if you will. And anybody will have to do that. Mike Lawler would have to do that. Elise will have to do that. Both very capable of individuals. Blakeman out of Long Island is another name that's been mentioned. So, certainly, however the field shakes out, but you keep in mind that you have to have crossover appeal in order to accomplish this. And independents in New York are the growing, voter base, if you will. Mm-hmm. So they're the ones that you really have to appeal to, in order to accomplish this task.
Do you sense that she's in as a candidate?
I have no idea. So I have no inside track to that knowledge. I won't even speculate on whether she's in or not. Certainly that's a decision she would have to make. So.
All right, Assemblyman, anything else you want to leave us with today?
No. I think it's, just on going back to the immigration. I mean, we just have to find, the migrant workforce. We like I said, we either have to have people that can fill those jobs, either that, or we have to find a way for these people to stay here, if they're not disruptive, to stay here and to be allowed to work. And I think that is going to support a larger, workforce initiative, right? Economic development. Mm-hmm. So, yep.
All right. Well, thanks again for coming in.
My pleasure.
I want to wish you a happy Easter.
Happy Easter to you too.
Thank you.
To everybody else. Sounds good.